Yeah, that's right. You're tuning in to the More For Me and You podcast. That's real interviews, real movie reviews, real people, real journeys. If you real, lock in. I've been working all night, early in the morning. If you hustle high, hustle, you can never waste a moment. That's more for me and you. 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 Let's go.
Well, for those that are not watching on YouTube, you and I are decked out with the best tracksuits ever known to man. I
am wearing a velour red tracksuit, which is the same one I wore the day I met you at the Stupid Games premiere, and I was like, I got to throw on the same tracksuit so you can recognize me. Like,
I think it's the only time I've ever seen you in person was that.
Oh yeah,
event. So
that's why. Yeah, you had to be able to find me.
You got to be able to point you out in the crowd.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I had to pull out a tracksuit for this episode.
I know. Yeah, I was like, yo, you're over here, just out here in the tracksuit, totally flooded, man. Love it.
It's, yeah. I mean, you gave me a lot of inspiration, and I was really upset that I couldn't make it to your birthday because I would have worn a tracksuit to that as well.
One year, all of my friends came to I had like a birthday dinner at Benihana.
Yeah.
And I had 30 friends show up to this dinner, and every single one wore a tracksuit.
That is awesome.
And hilariously, one of them was wearing a tracksuit that was the same one that I ended up wearing that day. So they got the gold prize. Yeah. But it was pretty funny because they all went and bought the tracksuits and stuff. But
that's great. Shows you got some good friends, dude.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, that was awesome. And then on the last movie I did, Boris is Dead, on set, the last day of filming, the entire crew came in tracksuits.
That's
awesome.
So
one of them asked me hey, where do you get those tracksuits on day 3? And I told them, and I guess they all bought tracksuits. So there's behind the scenes photos of me with all of them wearing tracksuits.
That's incredible.
It was pretty awesome. Shout out to the camera department on that.
Yeah, shout out to, I was going to say your producer was on point making that happen.
no, that was camera crew. That was camera crew. It was pretty funny.
So cool, man. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, and it was great meeting you at the Stupid Games premiere. Obviously, shout out to Danny and to Nicholas and to Tanner for making an incredible film. But we had some really cool people there. Got to meet you. Got to meet. We had Chasen on episode 4. Chasen
Beecham cool.
Was there as well.
Chasen. I've known him a long time. Yeah.
Yep. So met some really cool people, but incredibly talented filmmakers, and that cast was great. So it's been great to see not just them have a great year with their release, but also to now win a Telly Award.
Yeah, they won a Telly for Best Micro.
Which technically you did too, because you were an executive producer on that film.
Technically I did. Yeah, technically I did. On a technicality.
Hey, we'll take a technicality.
No, I'm so proud of them. They really kicked ass, and I'm allowed to say that, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is not made for children.
Okay. All right, cool. So I'm allowed to curse.
I mean, we don't need to celebrate or anything.
Yeah.
Like in old school, shit, cock, balls.
Yeah.
Hey, Frank, we don't need to celebrate. but you can open it up there, if you need to.
Yeah. But no, I'm so proud of them. I think they really kicked ass with the movie. So, I'm excited with that for sure.
Yeah, and Danny says nothing but great things about you. I get to talk to her and give her some updates as far as how the film's doing on Momi too, and even some of I gave her on Chasen's episode, we talked a little bit about how there was a user on TikTok that came to us and let us know a story about how the film impacted her. And not just her, but also her relationship with her kid.
Oh, that's
how
awesome.
They were able to watch horror movies together because of Stupid Games, and so
I fell in love with watching movies with my dad. And so that's awesome being able to share that. That's one of the beauties of film is it's a shared experience. It's like being able to sit there and experience art. And one of the things that I love about movies is movies mean different things to you at different times.
Yeah.
You take a movie like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and depending on where you are in your life and relationships that you've had, that movie means something different to you each time you watch it.
Yeah.
And I think, that's something, really amazing about film. Because film is the highest art form. It combines every single art form. And so it takes paintings, music, storytelling, acting, everything, combines it to one. Photography. And what do we do with art? We project our own lives onto the canvas to draw our own meaning. So I think it's amazing when people get to have these different experiences with movies, and yet a full theater of people can experience a different thing.
Yeah,
I think that's something special.
I mean, even taking an iconic film like Sandlot, right? Like, being a kid watching Sandlot is cool because you're like, oh, that'd be so awesome if I wish I had like a group of friends like that, or be able to have a tree house like that, or do all that stuff.
I
right?
weirdly have worked with some of the kids from the Sandlot.
Oh, really?
Shout out to Victor DeMattia and and Marty York.
Very cool. Yeah, I think it was who played Yaya.
Yeah, Marty.
Yeah, so
Marty.
I'm from Santa Clarita, so there was there were a couple kids that kind of floated around Santa Clarita. From
for
that
sure.
Cast. But it was but watching that now as a father, having a son growing up, I'm like, man, I really want to be able to have those moments for my son.
Yeah.
And the world has changed, and obviously like being able to have like your own back area like that hasn't been built up with some multi-purpose family home or something like.
Sorry, to even have a backyard.
Yeah,
no.
exactly. True, exactly. But I'm just saying this back space area.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
There's no way that much land is not.
For sure.
Not undeveloped anymore,
sure.
right? But to be able to have like that and have that experience like with a tree house and do all that stuff, like I want that for my son now.
Also, there's no way with like social media and like everything that exists, you would have like a baseball legend living in your like next door to you without you knowing.
Without knowing about it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you casually played with Babe Ruth?
Yeah.
Cool. Oh, and you're blind?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, we know about you.
Yeah, we know exactly who you are.
The news has been here multiple times. Yeah. Totally get that. But to take it away from
the Sandlot,
our love for from Sandlot and our love for film, I want to go back to get to know you a little bit. I think a lot of podcasts and a lot of interviews typically talk about like what are you doing now, and we'll get into that because I want to talk about you're doing some incredible stuff. But I want to take it back to who James was like growing up. Like, what were you like? What was your childhood like, and who were you like growing up, and how that developed into who you are today?
Crap, like at what point of my childhood are we starting? You know, like
I mean, we go from birth, or where do you
yeah,
want to go?
like
right?
you know, it was a normal birth.
Yeah, where are you from though? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Los Angeles.
Cool.
Yeah, so born and raised Los Angeles. I grew up off of Fairfax and Melrose.
Okay.
And went to Hamilton High School Academy of Music in the drama department, and learned how, you know, my mom, even before that, you know, my mom was a music teacher in elementary school, was my music teacher in elementary school. And she also directed the school plays. So I would watch her directing the plays. And I was also, I would act in them and such. And from there, I kind of just really, you know, I fell in love with storytelling. And my dad was a writer. Actually, today is his birthday, believe it or not. But
happy birthday, Pops.
Yeah, happy heavenly birthday, Dad.
Oh, my man.
And yeah, but he was like the head writer of like Pinky and the Brain and Animaniacs and Tiny Toons, and so I grew up around film and storytelling, and you know, and I also grew up around the industry, so I saw the waves of success. Like my dad would be on a show and things would be good as a kid, and then there'd be times where we were going to lose our house because he wasn't working. And so I realized that, like, you know, as true artists, you know, it's never just like a constant like work path. Everything, you know, ebbs and flows in our industry. And so, you know, being able to manage that and sustain and weather that storm is one of the most important things in this industry. Because, you know, anybody can, you know, ride the high of being successful, but like it's not forever. It dips and it comes back, and it dips and it comes back. And I think that finding how to spend your time and keeping that creative drive inside of yourself at all times when things get slow, when there's a strike, when there's, you know, a pandemic is key.
Cool. How was it growing up with a creative family?
I mean, honestly, I don't know any other way. So.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Like my dad was a director. My mom, like, my mom and dad met on a film set. Like they were producers together, and so I actually, you know, had some summer, not summer breaks. It was more like daycare sessions on film sets, or like winter break was no, you know, I didn't get to stay home or go to some like camp or another. Like I went to a film set because my dad was making a movie in December.
That's
right?
awesome.
So it was like those were my summer and winter camps in a sense, right? Was living on sets.
I mean, I did summer camp, and I did sleepaway camp, and I did normal stuff like that. But you know, I would go visit because my dad was a writer. He wasn't like, you know, like on set, but I would visit like the recording studio when he was when they were recording, you know, like Pinky and the Brain or Captain Simeon and the Space Monkeys, which he did. And
So you get to see like the voice actors.
Yeah, I
doing
got
all
to
that
see
stuff?
the voice
Like, how
actors
cool
and
is
stuff. That was a lot of fun, and it was also a lot of fun because my dad's close friend Maurice LaMarche, who I'm actually having dinner with later today, who he was the voice of the Brain on Pinky and the Brain, but he's also almost every character on Futurama.
Yeah.
And one of the cool things was knowing Maurice, he could do like any voice. So as a kid, that was the coolest thing because I would just say a voice and he would just do it.
Yep.
So that was so much fun for me.
Yeah, my dad had a friend that could do Daffy Duck.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
it was
that's
just so
amazing.
cool.
Yeah, it was so
Like,
it was
Bill,
so fun.
do Daffy, and just do the whole thing. So yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think, the interesting thing about like growing up in the industry in that sense is like, I think a lot of people think, like nepotism, like people, you got a leg up in the industry because of your parents. And in many ways I did, but not in the way people think. Like my parents didn't get me a job. They didn't introduce me to anybody. They didn't financially support me, like that. None of that happened.
Yeah.
I was out of the house by I was 18 years old.
Behind the curtain, but
like
still had to get there.
What I had was the peek behind the curtain, the understanding of how the industry works.
Yep.
And pretty much the best, lessons in storytelling I could ever have.
For sure.
And I think that's and honestly, shout out to my dad as well. A lot of the mistakes that he made in his career, he talked to me about, and I learned from his mistakes.
Yeah. So
like I did not repeat those mistakes because, I learned from the mistakes he made.
Yep.
So it's one of those things that I think I got one of the best lessons and one of the best educations I possibly could have. But there was no like, they did not like call up and say, hey, we're going to give you a job. It would have been awesome if I could get that. But I mean, everything I did was self-made. Like at 18 years old, straight out of high school, I had written a script and I found $7,000 by contacting everybody that I knew, trying to find $7,000. And one friend had like made a website that they had just sold for like $20,000. And I was like, all I need is $7,000 to make this movie. And so they were like, okay, I'll give you, $7,000. So I was like, that's all Robert Rodriguez needed. That's all I need. And so I made this movie for $7,000, and the naivete of making a movie at that age, when you had never made anything like that before, $7,000 was like almost like having $1 bazillion because I was like a 3-person crew. It was like me operating the boom and like doing like makeup and like I was doing everything while directing. And it was like I had another friend who owned like a small camcorder that we were using to shoot the thing. And so it was I was lighting it, everything. So we shot that movie for probably the longest shoot schedule I've ever had, even to this day, because we shot for like, I think like 30 plus days just because like we didn't know. And and I didn't even know that it was like at that time, like I had never been on anybody else's film set. So I didn't even know that like you shot more than a scene in a day.
Yeah.
So I'd be like, all right, there's 30 scenes. That's 30 days. We'll shoot this scene one day, this scene another day. We just kept coming back and doing the scenes. And most of the actors, it was their first movies too.
Yeah,
because
so
they were friends
either.
of mine. So they didn't know. None of them were like, do you think you could shoot more than one scene in this day? I was just like, no, this is the day we shoot this scene.
That's so funny because you're looking back, you're like, man, we could have shot that in a week.
Oh yeah, we could have shot that. Not only could we have shot that movie in like a week or two, but also like it's like a 2-hour movie that should have been like like 75 minutes.
Baby, how fun was that though? That's so cool.
It was so much fun.
Yeah.
It was one of those things that not only was it so much fun, but like I think it was the culmination for me of like I had said my entire life, like in high school, I'd turn in a short film instead of doing a book report. And like I didn't go to college. Like I was in community college for like a week before I dropped out. Like I didn't do any of these things that other people did. So I was convinced I was going to make movies from, the age of like 7, or 8. So by the time that like I actually did it, because I went from playing with action figures and like making stories to like actually doing it with people and cameras. I was like, wow, like this is like, I willed it into existence. And I realized that like, I didn't actually believe I was going to ever do it until I actually did it. And then I was like, wow, I really did it, But I think I like faked that I believed in myself long enough that I actually did,
For sure. Well, let's take it back for a second. Just
Yeah.
A little bit. what was that moment like? You knew, like, I want to try to do this. 'Cause, I mean, obviously doing it at 18 is very advantageous, but there had to be a moment you're like, I want to be a filmmaker.
I mean, yeah, it was my dad took me to go see Kill Bill, and I saw it in the theater, and I remember the ticket taker was trying to not let us go into the theater. And I was like, I wanted to go in, and my dad was taking me, and they're like, are you sure you want to take your kid to see this? It's violent and like, has all these curse words. And he's like, that's why I'm taking it.
Things that I've seen when I was a kid, my goodness.
But I felt like I was going to get kicked out of the theater at any point. So that's like that excitement, like, how that made me feel, the dangerousness. I was like, I want to make movies, and that's what made me realize I wanted to be a director. But I knew I always wanted to make movies and work inside of film. Because, I, at a young age, my dad got very sick, and all I was able to do was watch movies with him because, he was bedridden for many years because he was getting like a liver transplant and all this stuff. And so like we would just sit down and watch movies and we'd talk about film. And I think that's kind of, and he was showing me like, Citizen Kane at the age of like 8. So it's like, sitting there and watching these movies and stuff, I just knew that I wanted to be involved in film in some way.
Sure.
But seeing Kill Bill is what made me realize like I want to be a director.
Yeah. So Kill Bill, Citizen Kane. What are other films that like really inspired you and like, or you kind of use as influences for what you do?
Interestingly enough, I get inspired every time I watch movies. Yesterday I went to go see a screening of the TV show Adolescence over at the TV Academy, and I don't know if you're familiar with the show, but every episode is just a giant oneer, and they're like super complex oneers.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a very like thought-provoking.
I haven't gotten to that one yet, but I have heard about that.
It's really phenomenal, and it's a very thought-provoking drama. But the thing about me watching that and hearing them talk about it, I was immediately inspired. I'm like, I want to make a movie that's all in a oneer now.
Ooh.
Like, you know what I mean? So like, you see stuff. I think good art inspires others to want to make art.
Absolutely.
Good art inspires others to want to make art. And that's kind of, when I watch something that I really like, I go, I want to do that. I want to make that. I want to make something like that. And I think like that's exciting. I mean, not saying that I would make the same story, but just going like, wow, that must have been really interesting to make something completely in a oneer, almost as this giant play, and hearing all the actors talk about that experience during the Q&A. I was like, I want to do that.
Yeah. And you actually talked recently, I obviously followed you on social media, so I get to see a lot of stuff you're doing. But you talked about how you had a script from when you were a child or like really younger on, and you actually were able to make that film.
Yeah. No, as strange as this sounds. So I was during this slate with Niccolo, with Insurgents, and
Niccolo Messina, by the way.
Yeah.
From episode, I think 12. But yeah, go ahead.
But anyway, so we're going through he wanted like horror and thriller movies. And so we're going through all this. And I just like randomly was like, oh yeah, I had a thriller that I wrote in 9th grade as my like, creative writing assignment.
Yeah.
That was like a feature length thriller.
Which I remember, by the way, from an interview, I was like, man, thinking about what I was writing in 9th grade was nowhere near a level of actually being a script, not even a short.
I mean,
nothing.
Who knows if it? We'll see the movie. We'll see if it was actually like. But basically, I was like, I thought we're doing 12 of these movies or something like that. I'm like, let's see if one of the filmmakers doesn't have a script and is down to just take this, and they were. So I was like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
Like, let's just see what that is. Let's get that made. I thought it was really cool, and it also like created like a weird stat for me, which is now literally every single script I've ever written has been like bought or made.
That's pretty cool.
That was the only one that hadn't been. So I'm like, oh wow, now everything I've ever written has been bought or made.
Do you remember like the first time you picked up a camera? Like,
yeah, I do. We were filming, me and my sisters were filming like a play that my sister had made, called The Green Machine, where I played like a monster that had green face paint. And we were filming it in like our like living room, and it was like a little short.
That's cool.
Was just,
Where can we find that?
I think I was like 5 years old or something
Where
like that.
on YouTube is that? What is it?
It is
mean?
not on YouTube. It is. It is.
We need to get that on.
It has been destroyed.
Can we get that on Momi too? That'd be great.
It has been destroyed and will never be seen ever again.
Yeah. You started pretty early as a filmmaker. And I think that's, you and I've had conversations about like film school, and obviously you didn't go to film school. And not that there is, like, we actually just talked about in our last episode about how there's pros and cons to film school from someone that literally just graduated from film school. So with that said, like, what were some of the challenges that you faced in the school of the hard knocks, right? Obviously just being a guerrilla filmmaker, going out and just doing it. YouTube University, if people want to call it that, right?
I mean,
you just went out and learned and did it.
I mean, it's super trial and error.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you know, if we were to, like, if you pull up my filmography right now and go like through the movies I directed, I could tell you the biggest lesson I learned on each film.
Yeah.
If you want to do that, like, that might be something.
Great.
That might be something
IMDb
worth
page
to do.
and
Yeah.
directing, and let's pick 3 random films.
Yeah.
No, I think that's fun. I think that'd be a great idea.
But yeah, I mean, you know, it's the ones I directed, and you know, but like, for instance, My Pure Joy, the biggest lesson I learned on that is that just because I shot it doesn't mean it has to be in the movie. Because that's a movie that should have been way shorter. I almost think, like, you know, I've been saying this for a long time, that like it would actually be, it's my least favorite movie that I've made, but I feel like it would actually be, and that was my first one, but I feel like it would actually be better if it was like 80 minutes instead of like the 2-hour cut that exists. And I almost wonder, like, if I should just release an 80-minute cut to see, like,
you know what, though, that's a lot of independent films, though. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I obviously have watched a lot of independent films, being, you know, running Momi too.
Yeah.
But there are so many films where I'm like, man, if that was only like 20 minutes shorter, if that scene had been a little tighter, like even with Stupid Games, love the film, but like the dinner scene, just a little longer than it needed to be, right? They drew it out a little longer, and just could have been fixed in post. So it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, my personal favorite thing to do now is I try to see how many lines I can pull out of a scene without, like, you know, Jenga, like almost like it's Jenga. Like, you pull the lines out of the scene, and if it doesn't collapse and it still gets the point across, you keep the scene together. It's one of those things where I'm always convinced, like, oh man. But
all right, so we got this whole directorial page pulled up. Cool. Let's pick 3 random films, not his first one because he just talked about it. 3 random films and
features, not the shorts or the music videos.
His page is very long, by the way.
Captors. Yeah, so Captors was a fun experience. So we shot that in the snow in Ponderosa, like up in the mountains.
Yeah.
During a snowstorm, it was pretty cool in that sense. And I think one of the coolest things that I learned on that movie is I have a tendency as a filmmaker to try and settle into what's comfortable for myself, which is like just standard coverage.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, any scene can be, even this podcast. Look, anything can be shot like with, you know, 2 singles and a wide.
Yeah.
You know, any scene with 2 people, you know, or an over the shoulder and over the shoulder and a 2-shot. Like, you could literally take any dialogue scene, anything like that. And with Captors, 90% of the movie is one person. So I had to figure out how to shoot scenes in a way where I'm not falling into any type of standard coverage. Like, how do you uniquely shoot a scene so differently and find this coverage? And I think that experience of like doing that made me fall out of, in the future, you know, moving forward into my career, of very much recognizing when I would fall into like standard coverage, and I'd go, no, we can't do this. This is too basic. We can't get rid of the basic stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that I really learned from that.
Very cool.
In having to think outside of the box, being forced to think outside of the box.
Yeah. Next one. Murder Anyone?
Okay, Murder Anyone. So that one was the movie that I made for my father, who it was a play that he wrote, and I made a promise to him that I would not leave his words just on a hard drive, and I would help his story move on and get out there. So I self-financed and made that movie, and that movie was very unique in many ways because it was genre bending. It went through every single genre, and I made the decision that while it did that, I wanted the filmmaking style to change within every genre. And I think like that's a very fun movie in the sense that it changes genres multiple times. And so how I shot the movie completely changes genres, the colors, the lighting, everything that we do, how the acting is, everything completely 100% changes from scene to scene, because it's about two writers writing a script, and as they're writing it, like you're seeing everything acted out in real time. So I think jumping back and forth between different genres and how to blend that really made me fully understand what tropes visually were synonymous with each genre.
Yeah. That's awesome. Oh.
But also to say, as a filmmaker, because I didn't go to school, I learned on each movie by making tons of mistakes.
Yeah.
You know,
it's the best way to learn.
My dad told me, you know, when I started at 18, and he said, no matter what, until you turn 30, every single movie that you make from now until 30 is going to be always remembered as your early work. So just experiment and have fun.
Yeah, I don't think enough filmmakers, especially those that I mean, obviously I interact with a lot of college filmmakers just because of the film festival. Not enough of them understand that you are not going to make your
magnum opus.
Your film that you're known for until your 30s, maybe even your 40s, because most of like the top filmmakers,
I mean, unless you're Orson Welles, you know?
But if you really look at all the top filmmakers of all time, they were all between the ages of like 32 and 46, I believe, is what the numbers were. And I just posted about this recently because it was on Reddit, and some kid was like talking about like how I'm never gonna make it. I'm like, how old are you? And he's like 24. I'm like, dude, like don't expect to make it right now. Like you are going to need to take time to develop
100%
your style and who you are, and like learn things from like the mistakes you made.
Experience enough life that you actually have a message and a voice and something to talk
100%,
about.
100%.
You know, like I think as a filmmaker, you know, early on in my career and really like up until I was 30, like I was finding my style. I was finding my voice and really like experimenting with styles and emulating things that I had seen to like pay homage, but to also just find how to tell stories and unique ways of shooting scenes and really experimenting and finding stuff. And I think, you know, like my early films were my sandbox, and I didn't have a mission to make the greatest movie ever. I had a mission to make something slightly better than the last movie every single time. Yeah. And so like that was kind of, that was, so I think like, you know, maybe I took the longest film school because, you know, now at 33 years old, I can literally say I'm a 15-year directing veteran of feature films. That's great. Which is crazy to me. Yeah. And I've directed, you know, 22, 26 feature films, or between 22 to 26. I'd have to like actually count them. But like, honestly, I think I've only directed like real movies in the past like 3 years. Yeah. You know, I mean, everything else was like really just like student thesis projects that I think people were just able to see. But I think it's been, you know, I mean, it's been fun, like experimenting and growing. And that's why, you know, one of the fun things about making a movie like The Workout is I went back to the roots of having no budget, you know, like I did early on in my career, but with the experience that I had of making movies for 15 years and the connections I'd had of making movies for 15 years. And so it doesn't feel like a low budget movie. And I think like that's kind of one of the really special and unique things about experience. And so, I mean, I think a lot of people are so afraid to fail and so afraid to not make that masterpiece that they don't even make something. Yep. And like I'm okay. I have publicly made failures. I mean, I think you know, I'm telling you, my first movie is probably one of the worst movies ever made. I made another movie called The Condo, and I'm like, I can't even watch it. It's like I'm embarrassed.
It's that bad.
I mean, it's a movie called The Condo that has no condo in it. It makes no sense. It's literally, it takes place in a mansion. There's no condo. You know, like it's there's I have no clue why it's called that. You know, it's not to knock on any
Craig's
of my
over
movies,
here just
but
dying laughing. I'm trying to keep it together to keep us on track, but Craig's just dying over here.
I'm just saying that, like, you know, I've made public mistakes of films, and I think, you know, but like I like pieces of each of them, and I think like the lessons and where I've grown in each film is what's special.
We talked about this in our last episode, and it was just one of those things where you just have to get out and make films. Like, trial and error, learn from everything you're doing.
I mean, especially with the rise of AI, I'll say, like, if AI can generate, because I've played with it before, and I think that ultimately, like, I'm a firm believer that, like, it's not going to replace filmmaking.
There's no way it's going to.
Well, I was talking about it earlier today. It's like there's no way AI is going to replace filmmaking and films in general. It'll be a tool that people end up using to like enhance films.
It hasn't replaced the music industry, and it's been around for a lot longer with that. So
exactly. It was able to make a song that like completely was, identical to Drake and The Weeknd, and we've never seen an AI song chart. I'm just saying that like it's going to bridge the gap in VFX, I think. But what'll really, the thing is like people want to laugh at people they already find funny. That's why comedy works, is they want to laugh at stars. They're not AI, they're not doing AI for stars.
Especially with the writing and even the improvisation and scenes that come out of within comedy. I mean, comedy, even if it doesn't matter if it's horror, in the horror genre, there's comedy. And like in drama, there's comedy. Like there's always comedic pieces you cannot replicate with AI.
The human touches and the elements, I think it just is going to challenge filmmakers to find their voice and be more unique in what they do, and come up with more unique thoughts. And I think like that's actually exciting to me. The other thing I think, is with how much AI is advancing, it's now also starting to threaten the jobs of people at the higher ups at the studios, which means they're going to create guardrails to stop it because they'll be out of a job. They don't want to lose their own jobs.
Absolutely. That is a great point. It's
like, when it was threatening the artists, it wasn't a problem. But now that it's threatening executives, no, we got to get rid of this.
We got to stop it. We got to stop it. I think that ultimately the audience is going to know, because obviously in order to get AI films to be impactful as a whole and replace the industry, quote unquote, you would need the audience to not know that film is made with AI.
Well, I mean, what would you rather?
People aren't stupid. They're going to know that it is. Secondly, the filmmaking industry is not going to sit down and just let it happen. They're going to go on TikTok. They're going to go on Instagram. They're going to go whatever social media platform and say, hey, guys, this movie's AI. Don't go watch it. If you go watch it, we're out of jobs. There is going to be a revolution in a sense
for sure,
of people versus machines versus like the iRobot of robots against the people. But it's going to happen.
I think it's a shiny thing that people are going to look at and go, hey, look, this looks really cool for a second. But there's no like heart and soul behind it. Like, like when you take, no AI is making a movie that's based on their deceased father's, script and doing this to honor his words as his last wish when he passed away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like nobody is doing stuff like that. Like we did with Murder Anyone. Like nobody is, like, is AI going to take the time to take the care like, Danny and her team did to actually build a functioning game for stupid games? Like the board of that game is, I mean, that's incredible. I think that ultimately, the human touch is there's no way that you can replicate that. And there's, if you take a script and the movie isn't the script, the script is just the blueprint. And what you're feeding into AI is prompts. There is magic that happens on set that you never even thought of.
It's all improvisation that happens between the director, the actors, like taking the script, rewriting it, saying, hey, when I was reading this for the third or fourth time while I was sitting in my pool, right, or whatever, I thought about this and it could have been done this way. Could we do that for a second? Is there a way we can try to do that scene? And then we just do it. And all of a sudden that becomes like the best scene of the film, right? Because it's just this random little moment that happens. So I think there are some aspects of AI that are impactful. I think as far as operational stuff, like there is a program, it's called a company called Film Ustage. Pre-production AI helps with planning. I think that's needed, not across the board for everyone, but like for some, like an independent filmmaker who doesn't have the budget, especially for the pre-production side, that's super helpful.
I mean, I
actually donated stuff to our film festival for those college students to use. Because,
that's awesome.
And I was like, for a moment, I was like, I don't want to have anything to do with AI. But then I learned about their product and I was like, you know what? For these college students coming right out of school, this is a perfect product for them. Whether they use it for their whole career or not, or they just use it for one film after they win, that's up to them, right? They're the filmmaker. but I think it's something that could help someone that has a very limited budget. And those are moments where I think AI can be helpful.
I mean, I use AI in the sense of like I'm very bad at like making plans.
Yeah.
And so I use AI to tell me like, you know, it analyzes my calendar and tells me, hey, you're free at this time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I can tell them I could hang out at this time on this day.
Yep.
And then I plug it in to my calendar and then it goes. Like, you know, it's like I'm able to like actually like lock down when I'm available, when I used to just be like, I don't know, hit me up that day, let me know.
Yeah. One thing you learned while making Limelight.
Actually, as you know, a really interesting thing. So Limelight I made when I was 21, and it's a weird lesson that I learned actually, but there is still now to this day, the movie is out with a glitch. There's a thing that was supposed to be a freeze frame.
Yeah.
That just repeats the shot a second time that's in the movie.
Yeah.
And it's, if you watch it right now on, you know, Tubi or wherever it is, it still has that glitch in the movie. And that's because literally now, for the end of time, I watch every single version of my movie all the way through.
Just to
and
make
that's
sure.
like, you know, I used to lock the cut, you know, watch with color and sound and all that stuff. But I didn't watch the export that went to QC because I had already approved everything right before that. You've watched the movie like 10,000 times, but like QC is not going to catch, you know, that because they think that that's some type of creative choice. So it goes, so that very, very, very last export that goes out where you're like, you've already seen the movie 10,000 times now, because I didn't fucking watch that last one. There is a permanent mistake that is on that movie.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Forever.
Yeah,
and
that's a great lesson.
It's an amazing lesson because you know your job is done by that point. There was no reason, like technically, there's no reason to watch that. You've watched every single export up until that point. You've watched it when it had the full sound mix. You've watched, you know, all of it. You watched the DCP in a theater. And like, you know, for a film festival where there was no mistake, you've watched every single thing. But that very last export that was like, you know, 5 months later after it had already played film festivals and all that stuff, that went to the distributor, you know, and you're like, oh yeah, it's fine, I've already signed off on it, blah, 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 because you've seen it 10,000 other times,
you think it's the same,
and you think it's the same thing, but there's one glitch that somehow got into it and you didn't catch it because you didn't watch it. That was my mistake, and that's a lesson that I learned at 21, and now I literally have watched it so many times, every movie that I do, to a point that like there's no glitches in the stuff, and by the time that the movie premieres, I can't even stay for the premiere. I've seen it so many times, I don't even want to watch this movie ever again.
So, lesson to be learned: you are your own QC.
Yes.
Don't let another company do your QC for you.
No, yeah, because when another company does the QC, they're anything that's like an error creatively, they're not going to catch. It's technical errors. Yeah. So like it got passed through that, and that's, you know, there's literally a shot of Mike Manning, the actor Mike Manning, when he is talking to Paul Vandervoort's character about Sergio, and there's a freeze frame like we do, and there's a voiceover, but instead of the freeze frame, the shot just repeats itself.
Crazy.
So it's very weird. It's right there, and it's I definitely learned that lesson at 21 years old, which honestly, some people are like, how did he miss that? Like, he probably should have learned it. But like, as I'm saying, like, you know, you would think that after having already seen the movie on a big screen in a film festival and having watched it and approved it so many times, how could there just be some random glitch on a random export that happened at the very end of all of it?
Yeah.
You know?
So I want to learn something new about you.
Mm-hmm.
Can you walk us through like your creative process? Like, and it doesn't have to be like obviously too deep, but just like from like, okay, where do you start? Like, are you starting with visuals? Are you starting with writing? Where are you starting from? And how do you get to where you have a finished product?
I think there's like an idea that becomes like an itch that like sears itself into me, where I'm like, I have to do this thing.
Yeah.
You know, and then like I get like this drive to do this thing, and I have like once I decide I'm doing something, like hell or high water, it's happening. So like, then I start to like talk about it like it's happening. And then I start to tell people that I'm doing it. And then like most people like go like, don't tell people that you're doing something until like you're actually doing it. I tell people because then I'm like, if I don't do it now, all these people have heard me say that I'm doing this thing.
Really,
so
James, tell us about that horror film you've been talking about.
Yeah, so it's like it forces me to do it. So I
Yeah.
create like a structure where I can't get out of it now, you know? And then what I do from there is like, I start like pushing forward to like either write it, or if it's a script that already exists, I start breaking it down. And so like I'll take every single page of the script and write like notes on each thing. So I write like the actor's motivation of why they're saying the line. I write, I'm looking at this, the description of the scene, and I start writing what I want them to wear and like the color palette that I want like the scene to have, and like what are the walls going to look like, and what kind of location we should be looking for. And then I start going, okay, this character is probably a little tired and stuff. So like, how do I do that? Okay, I want makeup to put like a little bags under his eyes and make his hair a little greasy, or maybe he didn't shower yet.
Yeah.
And like, I start doing all those things and writing all that out on every single page. So I have like these crazy handwritten notes that look like little serial killer notes. And then I draw overhead blocking maps of the scenes, because, when you watch a lot of movies, especially independent movies, one thing that you see over and over again is people will just sit down and talk like this.
Yep.
Or they'll like just stand and talk to each other like that. And it's like, no, like people are moving around in real life. Like they're going to like walk over there, grab a water bottle, talk this, come back to here.
Yep.
Like they don't just plant. So I start creating movement in it. And then I have those conversations with the actors, and the actors look at that and go, okay, that's great, but I don't feel like I'm tired. And I, and I don't want to walk over there to grab the water bottle. I feel like I would be kind of more planted. And then you go, okay, well, then the other character could do that. And you kind of reverse it. So you have those conversations and those ideas, but I come up with like an A plan, a B plan, a C plan, and really like have a thought process so that every single thing that I do in preparing for the movie, I go through every single scenario so that on set I can have fun. And I just go, oh, it's not going to be plan A, it'll be plan B. Oh, we're behind and we got to hurry up. Okay, we go to plan C. Okay, the actor's having a bad day and he doesn't feel like doing this. We're going to plan D. And I don't have to worry. There's no stress, because I'm just like, all right, I've planned for every scenario. It's, so I come up with this like super meticulous thing that probably looks completely insane, but it makes me feel comfortable when I'm on set, and it also allows me so much time to talk to the actors and work with them, which I think is the most important thing, because so many independent filmmakers are so overwhelmed with everything when they're on the set, because they didn't adequately prepare, so that they don't actually give enough information to the actors or talk with them. And I think like, actors want direction. They want to work with the director. They want to understand why they're doing things. Because that allows them to put that all in the back of their mind and then find magic in the moment.
Yeah, then kind of get the creative juices flowing. Like, okay, this is what you want. I'm going to innovate it and make what I want, and then we can find a common ground and make a good scene.
Exactly. Yeah. I prepare as much as humanly possible, and then I pretty much throw it out the window and see whatever happens. Yeah. But like, you want to prepare so much. I mean, listen, it's the same thing as like a fighter does. Mike Tyson says everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. You prepare. You go, okay, what's going to happen if they do this? What's going to happen if they do that? You prepare for everything, and then you get punched in the face and you roll with it.
Dude, I just watched a fight recently. We were talking earlier about Lights Out Sports and that venue in Long Beach, and there was this fighter, and I really want to get him on the podcast here. We've been talking about it. He's in Hawaii right now, so we're trying to find a date.
Oh, very cool.
And he's from there, but he fights out of Long Beach, and his name is Jake Babian.
I know him.
Dude, this guy came out.
I saw him. He's had crazy fights. I've seen three of his fights. 3 or 4 of his fights live. Yeah. At the Up Next Fighting.
Okay, cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, so that's awesome that you know him.
Yeah.
So this last fight that he just had, you have to go back and watch it. It is insane.
Yeah.
So the previous
was that for what promotion?
Lights Out Sports.
Lights Out. Okay.
Yeah. So Sean Merriman's promotion. So his previous fight had been like a 15-second knockout.
Yeah.
And so they get into this next fight. This guy's like built up, like there's no way he's going to be able to perform that, like whatever. And so he gets in there, and like obviously the other guy's fighting against has his plan. Like he knows that he
And then he knocks him out in 15
he probably knows that Jake's gonna come in hot, right? He's
Yeah.
just like, this is how this guy does it. So he's probably got a plan and all that stuff. Jake came in with a flying kick that he wasn't even planning to do. He's like, I was just gonna rush him and see what happens. Jumps up, flying kick, right to the dome. Dude goes down, starts ground and pounding him. And the last knock, you see this dude's eyes like roll back in the back of his head.
Oh,
It's like
wow.
he hit him so hard, square in the temple. His forehead opens up like a crazy gash. Fight was over in 6 seconds.
Wow.
Talk about planning.
Yeah.
Had that guy didn't know it hit him.
Yeah.
And he probably planned for months for that
yeah.
fight just to get ready for this guy, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, great point by talking about Mike Tyson is like, yeah, you do have a plan until you get hit in the face. Then you got to pivot. Then you got to figure out what else to do. And hopefully you don't get knocked out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I call you JCB.
I like being called JCB.
Do other people call you JCB?
I feel like some people do.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like some people
I
do.
think JCB is just so cool.
Yeah.
Then you also have JCVD.
Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Jean-Claude Van Damme, which is
Who I called Jean Cloud.
Jean Cloud. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of my favorite actors, to be honest, of all time. Oh, and I think it's
By the
only
way,
because
I only say that because somebody was reading his name and it sounded like Jean Cloud, and
that's
so I
so funny.
I just picked it up and started saying it.
If he heard that, he's probably like, "What?"
No, I say it to him. I'm like, Jean
Well,
Cloud.
no, you can because you're the director of the film.
yeah.
It's a different story than having some like grip on the film or like
Yeah.
someone in catering say
Yeah.
that. He's gonna be like, get off the
he calls
the set.
me Jimmy.
Jimmy?
Yeah, Jimmy.
Oh, that's
Oh,
cool.
Jimmy, come here. Yeah.
So one of my favorite actors though, like Bloodsport,
Mm-hmm.
just love that film. How was it directing Jean-Claude Van Damme?
JC is an interesting cat, man. He's been around the industry for forever.
Yeah, and that's Darkness of Man, by the way.
Yeah,
People
Darkness of Man. It's on
haven't-
Hulu right now.
Yeah, go check it
It's
out.
on Hulu. Not to plug a different thing
No,
than
do it.
Momitu, but
No, please. You already talked about Tubi.
yeah. Oh yeah. Well, my bad.
My nemesis.
Yeah.
No, we love Tubi. Tubi actually
Yeah.
does a lot of things like
Yeah.
people talking about like high tides rise all boats, right? It's like that.
Yeah.
That is something for us. Is that
Yeah, for sure.
like Tubi's doing incredible things, even with the Super Bowl ads.
yeah,
To be able to do the Super Bowl and run it for free on Tubi.
that was
with
crazy.
ads,
Yeah, that was crazy.
it's an incredible thing for our industry because it helps advertisers learn more about ad-based platforms.
Well, the funniest thing I thought about, like when it comes to things like Momitu and Tubi, is
Yeah.
like TV died because of the streamers,
Yeah.
and then the streamers were like subscription based things, and then they weren't doing enough revenue, and so
Yeah.
they're like, you know how you make money? We should release it for free with ads.
Let's
And
go
it's
put
like,
let's put
it's like,
commercials on.
You mean like TV?
You mean like TV? It's like, yeah, it's the same thing as TV.
Yeah, it is. I think it's hilarious.
It is very interesting.
It's like, oh yeah, let's make a subscription service that they don't have ads to not be like TV. And they're like, well, that doesn't work. Let's go back to the TV format.
Well, what's funny is I want to actually say like, hey, come watch Momitu. We're a commercial based movie platform. Only because of the fact that people hate the word ad.
Yeah.
Like, I have to watch an ad. I want to skip an ad on YouTube. I want to skip an ad.
Oh, I mean,
as soon as you call it a commercial, they're like, where do I sign up? 30-minute commercials all throughout the Super Bowl. Can't wait to watch them.
I mean, I agree, especially with YouTube, because I feel like I'm watching an ad to watch an ad.
Yeah.
Half the time I'm on YouTube trying to like look up like a movie trailer. So I'm like, I'm watching an ad to watch a movie trailer.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh man.
For sure. No, it's but how was that? Like, was he just a really cool dude
I
to work
just
with?
realized
Like,
I just ADD'd away from
No,
that whole thing, and we came right back
that's
to
how we go. That's how I do it too.
Yeah.
I'm a total squirrel.
Yeah. I mean, the cool thing about working with somebody like JC is like it kind of like completed my childhood dreams, because it's like I had done a movie with Steven Seagal. I had done a movie with Mel Gibson.
There you go.
I had done 2 movies with Bruce Willis,
Yep.
and then I got Jean-Claude Van Damme, and I'm
Yeah.
like, all I need is Arnold and Sly, and I have like my whole childhood, and then throw in some Wesley Snipes for me.
So at that point, you can knock out you can knock out Rocky, you can knock out Terminator, and I'm just gonna go on a limb and say Demolition Man, but it's not
Demolition Man. Yeah, I love Demolition
But
Man, but it would be
Blade.
Blade.
Yeah, no, I
it would
know.
be Blade. I love Demolition Man.
Demolition Man,
Yeah.
the longest Taco Bell commercial ever made.
Oh yeah, for sure. I love it. Do you know how to use the 3 seashells?
Who doesn't? Lastly, I just want to, and this has been an awesome time with you. I don't want to get off because we have some other things to go over in this episode. But what's next for you?
Oh, so I'm finishing up post on the movie I directed, starring Dane Cook, Boris is Dead. And then the next movie that I'm looking at, I have a few things percolating that I'm going to direct that we're kind of nailing down dates on.
Yeah.
But the next thing that I'm involved with that I'm producing is a movie called The Leader, starring Vera Farmiga and Tim Blake Nelson. And it's about the Heaven's Gate cult, and that's shooting relatively soon. And it's directed by Michael Gallagher.
Very cool. That's gonna be a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Where's that being shot?
It's being shot in the South, and it's gonna be a good time.
Dude, let me know when that is. I'd love to fly out and see that. It'd be cool. Maybe we can find a sushi joint wherever that is.
I don't know if I would trust a sushi joint in the deep South, but maybe they have good sushi. Who knows? I'm like, I have a thing about landlocked sushi, but maybe it's good.
There's some really incredible sushi restaurants that are up in Denver, and so you'd be surprised. Especially nowadays, people can get.
Yeah, I guess you can ship things super quick.
There's a place in Denver, I believe it's Denver. I'm pretty sure. There's a sushi restaurant that's an omakase which
is the best. I mean, omakase is my.
It gets their fish shipped daily from Tokyo.
Oh, that's incredible.
From Tokyo, only fish from Tokyo, and it's a crazy expensive omakase experience. But
I guess that's one thing that Brian's touching on that people don't know, but my obsessions outside of film are sushi and tracksuits. So it's and UFC. So I watch fighting, eat sushi and tracksuits, and then.
Well, there's been 3 things I've wanted to do with you.
Wear tracksuits,
wear
having
a tracksuit
sushi,
with you, which I tried to do for your birthday, I just couldn't make it. 2 was we've been talking about going to sushi and having dinner together, and then 3, I did invite you to go watch a fight. And
do you know what we should do? Is it comes every October here, Sushi and Sumos.
Let's do it.
It's like a sumo wrestling competition, but then they have sushi.
Love it. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, it'd be sick.
I'm down for that. So last but not least, before we get into the next segment of the podcast here, look into the camera. Let people know where they can find you. If you have a website, social media, whatever it is.
Just look into crowds for a man in a tracksuit eating sushi.
Where's Waldo?
just look for Waldo. You can follow me on Instagram at James Cullen B, and that is my only form of social media. I have deleted all other forms. So at James Cullen B on Instagram, and that's it. That's the only way to get in contact with me. Or, just throw a tracksuit into the air or a sushi symbol and I'll appear.
Love it. Well, you can catch James or some of his work on Momi too as a EP. We got a lot of his films on there. And hopefully I would love if you and I could sit down and talk maybe over sushi about maybe even creating a rail of just JCB films. I think it'd be cool to get a kind of a slate of your films that you've directed. Not produced, directed only, and get them on a Momi too. Be kind of fun. Yeah,
some of you mean the earlier stuff that's reverted back to me?
I mean, I'm hoping we can get the condo on there.
I'm sure you could. I mean, listen,
or should it be called the
that
mansion?
Movie?
But,
it should be called Love Mansion, but it's called the condo.
But yeah, I would love to do that and then celebrate your work and let people know more about what you're doing.
Yeah, awesome. That's cool. Actually, one thing I was putting together, I think I was trying to do a summer movie night where I take 2 of my movies. I was going to do Darkness of Man and my movie Pernicious and do them as a double feature in theaters here in LA, 100-seat theater. And I was going to give just free tickets, just first 100 people that want the tickets, get them for free. And I was just going to literally just do a Q&A and have one little fan event for free to give back to people.
That'd be cool.
For the summer, I was thinking.
Well, let's talk about how we can work together with that.
Oh yeah,
awesome.
It'd be cool. Yeah, maybe we could do it in conjunction with the launch of the rail on Momito.
I love it. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, we will be right back.
Being a small business is difficult. And that's why each episode we've decided to shout out a different small business that either we enjoy or a guest enjoys. And being that this episode's very horror focused in regards to BITTERTOOTH and some of the other films that James has produced, we wanted to shout out a business that really caught our attention. Creeporama.com. And if you're into the horror genre and you haven't heard about this company, you definitely need to go check them out. They make custom apparel that goes across the entire genre. Films that you well know, and some films that you probably don't even know. They do it all, and they do it in a way that is so unique and so creative and so eye-catching that you're going to want to buy more than just one t-shirt. So go check them out at creeporama.com and buy your next piece of apparel for the horror genre today. And with that, let's get back into the episode.
Mr. JCB, would you like to
What
play
up?
a game called This or That?
No, but it seems like I have to. So let's.
Seems like you have to. You're in the chair. So, but this game of This or
Yeah.
That is brought to you by our friends at Coastline Travel. So if you're looking to go anywhere in the world, whether you're booking a flight, a hotel, or an excursion, go to coastlinetravel.com and they will take care of all of your travel needs.
Well, in that case, I'm down to play.
Yeah, beautiful. If it's for Coastline,
If it's for the sponsors,
not even a sponsor.
oh,
We
we just like Coastline.
we love Coastline. They're
All
a great partner of mine as far as they do all my travels. So
oh, fantastic!
it's just more of my way giving back to them. And if anyone can use them for their travel, it's great. There's no fees or anything. It's just they take a cut, just like Travelocity and all them. They take a cut from the hotel or cut from the
Oh,
flight.
that's awesome.
They just do the same thing, but they'll work hard for you. So, all right, we're gonna ask a series of 20 questions to you, Mr. James.
All right.
And the first question we ask to every single guest. The rest of them are just random and different, and they get a little more tailored at the end.
Uh-huh.
So, you ready to have some fun?
Yeah, I am.
Perfect. Tacos or pizza?
Ooh, difficult, but I'm gonna go with pizza.
Pizza. All right.
Yeah.
What's your favorite kind of pizza?
All right. So this is kind of weird,
Yeah.
but like, I feel like pizza is only judged like how good it is by just a slice of cheese pizza.
I agree.
I feel like all
one
the
bite
other
out.
stuff you do, like, that's just you having fun, but
Yeah.
like you have to have a slice of cheese pizza to know if it's
Yeah.
actually good pizza.
Okay, Dave
And,
Portnoy.
and shout out the best pizza in Los Angeles, in my opinion, is Mulberry Street Pizza.
Mulberry Street.
Mulberry Street Pizza.
Let's go. Shout out to those guys. Playlist or podcast?
Playlist.
Playlist. Music.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some people like podcasts.
I know people do, but I'm more into listening to,
Yeah.
rap music while I drive around.
Yeah. Well, shout out to everyone listening to this now.
Yeah, of course.
Owe money or owe a favor? What would you rather do? Owe money or owe a favor?
Owe a favor. Yeah, because I don't like the idea of owing people money. That stresses me out.
Yeah. That's why you keep cash with you at all times.
That's why. It's why I'm the only person that hits people up and says like, "Hey, when am I going to pay you? I need to pay
Yeah,
you."
yeah,
Like,
no, for sure.
I owe you money. It's I hit up people on my movies and try to pay them early because
Yep.
I don't like the idea of being late
Yeah.
paying.
But favors are
somebody.
cool.
Yeah,
Party favors. Travel to space or to the bottom of the ocean?
definitely space.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely space. I don't want to see what's at the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah. And you don't want to be at the bottom of the ocean either.
Yeah, it's scary.
Yeah. Truth or dare?
Truth.
No, there's no game with that. I just want to know. What do you typically go with?
I'm like, I don't know. You have cameras rolling. I ain't doing dare.
No, but if you ever played a game, would you truth or dare? What do you typically go with?
Oh, I mean, you do like. I feel like you got to go like at least 3 truths before you do the dare. You can't just start with dare.
I respect that.
Yeah,
Dine in or dine out?
definitely dine out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All about
definitely
that
dine out.
experience.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think as weird as this sounds, I think Oprah said this, but like never eat alone. Because like you could be utilizing that time to like talk with people. And so like dining in is eating alone. So like I feel like, I like to set up lunches and dinners because I like to be with people and have a communal thing.
True.
I think food is like a community thing as well. Like much like movies, like it's something you share with people.
Yeah. I like it. More money or more time?
More time.
Yeah.
More time, I can always get more money.
Yeah. That's absolutely true. Give advice to your younger self or get advice from your older self?
Like I give advice to my younger self now or get advice from
Like-
older me.
Yeah, like give advice to say your younger self 10 years ago or 15 years ago when you were just starting to make features.
I think younger self did okay. I want advice from older self.
Yeah.
That's my current selfishness. I'm like, give me advice from the future.
Love it. Cult classic or a blockbuster?
Cult classic all day.
Yeah. What's your
Yeah.
favorite cult classic?
My favorite cult classic is a movie called Brain Damage by Frank Henenlotter.
Okay.
It's about a little alien that injects acid into people's brains and they trip out. It's from the 80s.
I love that.
Or Basket Case, also by Frank Henenlotter.
You like that guy?
Yeah, he's like one of my favorite filmmakers. I dedicated my first movie to him.
Shout out. I love
Yeah.
it. Take a big risk or play it safe.
Actually, also a shout out to Frank. I not only dedicated my first movie to him, but got in touch with him after doing that. And Frank and I hung out and we watched a bunch of horror movies and went and got like food when I was in New York. And it was like, I was like, 20 years old and I got to like meet like the filmmaker that like I idolized when I was a kid. And I was
So
like,
cool.
what a cool dude. Like,
That is
awesome.
Yeah, what a
Yeah.
great
And like
experience.
that energy is why like when filmmakers ever reach out to me, I'm always down to talk with
Yeah.
them because I was like, I reached out to him and he was totally down to have a conversation, grab lunch, go see a movie.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's amazing. I was
That's
like, I want to
awesome.
be like that guy.
Yeah, never lose that.
Yeah.
Take a big risk or play it safe.
Always take a big risk.
Swing for the fences.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, playing it safe, nobody got anywhere ever playing it safe.
Yep. Liked by everyone or deeply loved by a few.
Ooh, that's difficult because like I like being liked by. I don't like the idea of not being liked by people.
That's
I don't know.
But deeply
This
loved
is
by
the
a
hardest.
few.
This is the hardest one. Deeply loved by
Hey.
a few or liked by.
Didn't say they were all
everyone.
gonna be easy.
I'd say I'll go with. My gut is telling me to go with deeply loved by.
Yeah.
But I know myself, and I'd say probably liked by everybody because deeply loved by a few. Also, it makes me think there's those other people out there that hate me. Then,
Yeah.
so I'd like to just not be hated.
It's a tough balance.
Yeah.
If you ask Cat Williams, you gotta have more haters. So you never know.
Yeah. You're right. Cat Williams says you're not doing anything right if somebody
Yeah.
doesn't hate you.
You gotta up that number.
All right,
baby.
you know what?
You
Cat
gotta
Williams-
up that number, baby.
Yeah, Cat Williams made me change my mind. I'm gonna go deeply loved by a few.
Thanks, Cat. Thanks for switching it over for me.
Thank you, Cat.
Always be learning or always be teaching.
I feel like always be learning because you can't teach if you don't learn.
There you go.
So I mean, and I also feel like when we get to the point where we no longer feel we can learn,
Yeah.
then what are we doing?
Yeah,
I feel
true.
like I'm going to be learning from what I do at all times for the rest of my life.
Yeah. I feel like I already know the answer to this one, but creative freedom with chaos or structure with limits?
Surprisingly, I would say creative freedom with chaos.
No, I think I was.
Oh,
gonna go-
really?
I thought.
Oh,
you're
yeah,
all
'cause-
about the chaos.
I
Like,
was
bring it
literally
on.
talking about my whole process
No, I
about
know.
creating all this structure. But yeah, no, I totally would go with the creative
Yeah.
freedom with chaos.
I think having a little chaos.
I
in
feel
there-
like, in this industry, so much, we have to spend so much time creating movies that are just like homogenized to be like other movies that
Yeah.
are like, we're like regurgitating, things that might as well have been made by AI. They're just the same movie over and over again. Like it's, Die Hard in a submarine. Like, it's just doing all these different things that are so similar to something else, and really like being able to be fully creatively free and making something unique is what really stands out. And
For
so
sure.
I think being able to do that is definitely what I would what I would like to. The bigger the movies get, the more guardrails you're given.
For sure.
I feel like my goal in life is to make something that does well enough so that my guardrails get stripped away. It's funny because early on in my career, I wanted to be like Quentin Tarantino or like Robert Rodriguez because I thought they were super cool. And the more I work, I'm so envious of Steven Soderbergh because I'm like, Steven Soderbergh gets to do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
And he gets to try all these unique things. I mean, he wants to make a movie that's like, from the ghost's perspective, he gets to make, Presence. He wants to make this, thriller. He gets to do that, but he gets to make such unique movies because of how well the Ocean's series did. And so I'd love to make some big blockbuster to then go off and be Steven
Just go do
Soderbergh and
whatever
make
you wanna
whatever
do.
I want for the rest of forever.
For sure. Breakfast for dinner or dinner for breakfast?
Dinner for breakfast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I would have sushi for every meal. I mean, come on.
I was waiting for that. Create something timeless or viral?
Timeless.
Yeah.
Yeah. Timeless.
Although it's like you're just talking about, it's like you kind of want the viral thing so you can create the timeless stuff.
Yeah,
So it's
you're
like,
right. Yeah.
It's such
Yeah.
a balance. Story first or visuals first?
By the way, I was not knocking on Quentin Tarantino or Robert Rodriguez by saying it. I think they're both fantastic. I was just saying that, like, the career I would like the most now in looking at all of it would be
Shots
somebody
fired
like,
at QT. Shots
no
fired.
way. the career I would like the most now would be somebody like
For sure.
like
No,
a Steven
You're
Soderbergh.
good. Story first or visuals first? We already talked about it, but
Story first for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. I feel like that's, I could watch a movie with amazing visuals, but if I can't connect with the story, I get so annoyed.
Yep.
There has to be a story for me. I feel
Yeah.
like that's the most important thing to me is the story.
Yeah. I think you and I talked about this recently too, and I think this is a great question for you. But make one $3 million film or 10 $300,000 films.
Probably the $10,000, $300,000 films. Yeah. Yeah.
Especially if they creative freedom to do it.
Yeah, for sure. Now I'm also completely distracted because I'm like, man, like who's gonna have to clean all these things up that you're throwing on the ground?
Yeah, if you're not
ain't gonna
watching,
be me.
if you're not watching, we got every card that I
You're
read,
just
I
throwing
throw
them
it on the ground. It's one of the.
I'm like, who's
funnest-
gonna clean that up? It's not me.
Shoot on film or shoot digital.
Oh man, I'd love to shoot on film, but it's just like not realistic nowadays,
Yeah.
But I'd love to do it. I mean, that's like number one telltale sign usually that like the director's kind of like gone a little crazy is when they're like, "Yo, I'm gonna shoot on film." I feel like if I tried to ask for that, people would think I was nuts.
Yeah, I think of the director from that was in Entourage, Billy.
Yeah, yeah,
Shoot on film, and I got Final Cut.
yeah. But I mean, at the same time, I would love to shoot on film.
Yeah,
I'm
Yeah.
like, it would be a dream come true.
that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it would be so cool.
Yeah.
It looks so much better. It just,
There's a rawness to it.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely love it. Okay, you get to win an Oscar.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of fun, right? We're winning an Oscar. Do you want to do it for Best Picture or Best Director?
Best director.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. I also think it's really crazy that a movie can win like, best picture and not win best director.
It's crazy how the world works. And
Yeah.
especially now we're finding out that no one even watches the Oscars. So no one watches the films to win an Oscar, but now that's going to change.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's I feel like that's at some film festivals too. It's like how do they watch everything that's submitted? Because sometimes there's like so many more movies submitted,
I have seen so many short films in the last month. Incredible films. But watching that many, like over 100 short films, it was painful
Wow.
to watch that many films in such a short period of time. But I needed to. I have so much respect for film festivals that get features. Like I'm just
Yeah.
watching shorts. It is incredible.
I mean, it's actually part of why I don't believe in the audition process anymore because like, I like watching movies just with the characters in mind and then picking actors that I've seen in things and going, I want that person.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's almost unfair to the actors with auditions because you go and you're watching the tapes or you're in the room and by the time you get like halfway through all of it, you just don't want to watch any more of them.
Yeah.
You're just like, this is awful. Turn them off, because it's not that they're not doing a good job. You're just so fatigued.
But that's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's just like there's so many of them that I've had to watch in such a short period of time. Like,
Yeah.
I love movies. I love watching films.
Yeah.
But when you have to say like force me down and say you need to watch this many and this many time.
Well,
Oh, by the way, you still need to run your podcast. You still need to run your streaming platform. You're married. You have a 3-year-old. Like
Yeah.
all these other things, right? And it's like it's a lot.
Oh, I'm
It's a
sure. I
lot.
mean, think of it like, comparing it to like food. Like, we love sushi, but if they're like, yo, you have to eat 20 pounds of sushi in the next 2 hours, you're not going to love sushi anymore.
Hey,
You're
when I
going to be
was-
like, oh God, this is horrible.
When I was like
know?
15 or 16 years old, I believe, Light and Healthy Sushi in the Valley.
Oh yeah, I've been there.
I had
the
20.
all you can eat sushi place. Yeah.
I had 26 orders of yellowtail.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
It was
That's hilarious.
what a day. Last but not least, my favorite question for you: suit and tie or tracksuit?
So much to my manager, Lisa Gallant's chagrin, I would say tracksuit. Shout out Lisa. Love you. But yeah, no, I would say tracksuit. Yeah.
I'm actually digging this.
Yeah,
it's very comfortable.
You know what's so funny is I posted a picture of me not in a tracksuit.
Yeah,
And everybody's like, this has to be AI.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I just wore a normal thing to look professional once. But no, like the tracksuit thing came from the pandemic because
Yeah.
like I was stuck at home. And so I got a bunch of tracksuits because I was like, all right, I'm not going to just be naked in my house at all times. So I'm just going to put these on. And then like when I started being able to go out, I wore them out and everybody was like, I was wearing them as pajamas in my house. And like I wore them out and everybody was like, hey, that looks awesome. That
Nice
looks
fashion
good.
choice.
And I was like, and exactly. And I was like, wow, like I can just wear my pajamas in public and people
Yeah.
think it's cool. Like, cool. I'm just going to do that then.
So I think
You know?
if we can get one of your films into a major award where you have to wear a tux.
Well, I mean, so I was nominated for an Emmy last year, and
Yeah.
I had to wear a tux.
Yeah.
I wore a tux to the.
But how
Emmys.
cool would it be to find a designer to make you a tracksuit tux?
That'd be amazing. Like honestly, like kind of like Barney Stinson on How I Met Your Mother, the
Yep.
suit jammas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we need to.
Oh, you know somebody who could make me a suit.
Let's go. Hey,
I feel
look.
I feel like we should make a you know how you said you're gonna give me that bracket where it says
Yeah.
my movies. We should make a Momitu JCB tracksuit
I'm down.
where it has the bracket of my movies on the back, and it's just like a tracksuit.
Let's do it.
I'm
I'm
like
sure.
that.
I'm sure I can go to Chinatown and get someone to print that. Let's make it happen.
I want a tracksuit.
Let's do
That'd
it.
be awesome. Yeah, I'm like,
Awesome. Well, no matter where you're going in the world, make sure you go use Coastline Travel.
you brought it back.
I have to bring it back because we got to end the episode
I didn't know
with
that he
them.
was plugging it. I thought he was going to ask me like one last question.
No. But
I thought he was asking one last question.
no matter where you are going in the world,
Yeah.
and no matter what tracksuit you are wearing, go to coastlinetravel.com to book your next flight, hotel, or excursion, and tell them that Momi2 sent you.
I will also say, wearing a tracksuit on the plane, thank me later. Very comfortable.
Absolutely.
Very comfortable.
I'm going to Denver soon.
Yep, do
I'm
it.
gonna have to do it. Awesome. We'll be right back.
Promoting your podcast is hard, and that's why each episode we've decided to promote a different podcast that either we enjoy or a guest enjoys. And since James and I are discussing one of our favorite indie horror films on Momi2, BITTERTOOTH, we decided to promote a podcast that talks a lot about horror films. So if you get a chance, go check out Rewind of the Living Dead podcast. And this is where hosts Damon and Patrick, who some of you may know as Director Patrick, discuss horror films across the entire genre spectrum, from big blockbusters all the way to lesser known indie films. It is a really cool take on just the genre as a whole. And if they haven't done an episode discussing BITTERTOOTH or other films made by Monte Light, they definitely need to have him on and talk about those. But if you haven't checked it out, please go check out Rewind of the Living Dead podcast. And with that, let's get back into the episode.
Well, James, I gave you one single task before this podcast, and that was to go on to Momi2. Uh-oh.
Was I supposed to do something?
You were. You already told me you did. So don't make it dramatic. Go to Momi2, look through the movies, find a movie that you and I could both watch ahead of time, and then do a quick little spoiler-free review on.
And like the selfish person I am, I picked BITTERTOOth because I produced it.
I picked something that Sandaled Kid Productions
Yes,
went ahead
yes,
and
I picked
put a
something
little,
from my
little
own
EP
company.
credit on.
Yeah, so I was like, I picked something for my own company.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of this film. And you had a pick of the litter. Obviously, you picked a film that you've made, but it's also a film that our guest from episode 12, Nicolo, also helped put together as well. With
me
V
and Nick.
Channels are now
Yeah.
Insurgents Films, and so it was great that you did that. Obviously, same kind of collection of films as that went together with Stupid Games. So we premiered Stupid Games. 2 weeks later, we then premiered BITTERTOOth. And then 2 weeks later, we premiered another movie called The Box. So
Which
it's kind of a slate.
which I was not involved with.
You were not involved in that one. So I was luckily I was able to pick one that you weren't involved in.
Yeah,
Of all like 4,000 films you've EP'd, your credit list is massive. So we got BITTERTOOTH though, made in 2024 or made in 23, released in 24 on Momi2, and directed by our good friend Monte Light.
Monte Light,
Who
yeah.
I'm hoping that we're working on trying to get him on the podcast as well.
Oh,
It'd be great to have
fantastic.
him come on and
Yeah.
talk about some other films that he's made. We just got a film on through Terror Films of his. So hopefully probably talk about that
Which one?
Blood Covered Chocolate.
Oh, yeah. That one's fun.
Yeah.
Wow.
Really cool watch. So give us your first take on BITTERTOOth. Just quick little take, and
Yeah, I mean,
you know a lot about it. Obviously, you've seen it a couple times. So
Yeah. I had seen it, but it was a good brush up because I hadn't seen it since it was released, and that was like a year and a half ago. Right now, at this point,
about
right?
a year ago.
About a year ago.
Well, yeah, it went out. What was it? Well, March, so April.
Yeah,
like.
But I watched it like when it was delivered.
Yeah,
if that
of
makes
course,
sense. Not. Yeah. So
I had seen it myself. I saw the film in like December or January. right
Yeah,
around
but it
the
was-
same time when I saw Stupid Games.
It was a good rewatch for sure. And, I think, listen, one of the things that I think was done so well with the movie that I thought was so awesome was how creative Monte was with the editing.
Absolutely.
I thought that was one of my favorite things is just like the unique risks and chances he took with the editing was so interesting to see, like the split screens and all the different things that he did during that, and the flashbacks and all these different stylistic choices he made in the edit, and really built in the edit. I thought was so cool to see. Because it's very unique towards indie film. I mean, it's risks that I don't think you would see a mainstream film take, and a lot of them really worked, and I thought it was really cool to see.
Absolutely. And if you're interested in BITTERTOOTH, obviously it's playing on Movie 2, but we're going to go ahead and play the trailer for you. And if you're listening to this, you're unfortunately just going to hear it. But
Interestingly, the BITTERTOOTH is about a podcast.
it actually
so
is about a podcast. So you're kind of, it's kind of
it's
on,
very, it's kind of meta.
it's on brand.
Yeah.
Here we go.
In 1982, a series of brutal murders outside Acton, California, would start a reign of terror. The police have been unable to solve this case as the bodies continue to pile up with no end in sight. This is the work of a serial killer, whom they've dubbed the BITTERTOOTH Killer.
You survived BITTERTOOTH Killer. So you fought that, for what it's worth.
I remember watching that trailer, and it was a little off to me because it wasn't a typical trailer. Like it had a voiceover and almost seemed like it was like the beginning of a commercial or something, and then it obviously then got deeper into
because Autumn Ivy has that like very commercially voice. Yeah, because I think she does a lot of voiceover.
She reads like erotic books.
Is that what she does? I thought she did like a voiceover for like some cartoons.
I'm
and
sure
stuff.
she does that as well,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I just know that she does like
Yeah.
we were obviously I followed her when we did the release and
Yeah,
everything,
yeah,
and
for
so I
sure.
got to see a lot about what she did.
Yeah.
I joined her Discord channel
Oh, cool.
to get to
Yeah.
know kind of like a little behind the scenes of what she does on top of it. So
She's a very nice lady. Very nice.
very
Yeah.
sweet, very helpful as far as promoting the film.
Mhm.
I even think that her and Monty did like a Discord screening of the film.
Oh, very
and
cool.
said like here,
Yeah.
go watch it. on
That
Movie 2 and
I
support it
didn't
and
know.
stuff,
That I
so.
didn't know. But yeah. But yeah, she has like one of those like voices that kind
Yeah.
of sounds like, it could be a commercial voice.
Yep. Yep. So I was a little thrown off the beginning of it because I was just like,
Mhm.
what is like I was totally turned off at the very first few seconds, but then I was just like, oh, she's speaking because she is on a podcast. That
Yeah.
totally makes sense. So it does tie in together. Phenomenal choice, and I believe I'm not sure if Monty wrote this as well, but phenomenal.
He co-wrote it with
Did he?
with
Okay.
two others.
Cool.
Yeah.
But really cool because I've never seen like a podcast kind of get integrated and be like a obviously true crime podcast, but then it also then becomes about the true crime.
It's hard to talk about the movie without giving spoilers.
We won't get too deep in it, but we can
Yeah.
give like the premise away of it.
Yeah,
Obviously,
yeah.
it tells you the BITTERTOOTH Killer, and in
Yeah.
the trailer, it talks about the BITTERTOOTH Killer. It talks about how one of them had an experience with the BITTERTOOTH Killer. So
Essentially, the best way to boil it down is it's about a podcast that's investigating a murderer that may become their next victim.
maybe
You know,
don't know. You have to
Yeah.
watch to find out.
you have to find out. The true life starts to blend with the podcast.
Yeah, but what was your initial idea when you got pitched this, or initial thoughts when you got pitched the idea?
I mean, look, I think Monty had like a concept of what he wanted to do, and a lot of these movies that I was doing with Nick and V Channel now in Insurgents, I wanted to give creative freedom. Like, what would they do, and what resources could they pull together within the confines of making one of these types of movies. So when he said he was going to make it about a true crime podcast, that maybe the people involved could become, the victims. I was like, that sounds interesting.
Yeah.
I was like, I haven't, it was very unique. And I was like, yeah, let's see what it is. I mean, I think that's literally all he said to me.
Crazy.
I think that's literally, Monty can comment, but I think that's literally all he said to me about
That's
what it would be.
wild.
Yeah.
And you're just like, go for it.
I was like, sounds cool, man.
Sounds
I'm
cool.
like,
Can't wait to watch it.
Monty, like half the people that I did these these with I was more hands on with, because they had never done it before. Monte had done
a little more experience.
He was more experienced, so he seemed passionate about it and had like an idea, and I was like, yeah, just run with it, man.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the cast in here, and we have the two podcasters, right? You got Genevieve Thomas, and then obviously you already mentioned Autumn Ivy. They're incredible dynamic, very very believable. I think sometimes you get two characters and they're not quite believable together. I think they did a really really well, like really good job, especially when it comes to indie films, right? Like you kind of have to work with the cast you got or the budget you have and everything. And these two just did a phenomenal job. We also have Helen Udy, who's iconic in the horror world, and so kudos to her for being in the film and being the mom. So I'm not sure whose relationship that was that got her on camera.
I think Monte had worked with her before.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
But it was a nice touch to have her there, and obviously a nice piece to have on the film, just so people can just search her name and then obviously be able to find it.
Yeah.
Whether they're searching on IMDb or whatever. So Joel Thierry, who's somewhat of an unknown name, and I really enjoyed his character. I want to see him in more. And I think these are the great things about indie films is like you find a character that's very unknown. I think he's got like less than 1,000 followers on Instagram or whatever, and like it's sad that we like judge actors based on followers now, but it's stupid. But he is just a really down to earth dude. I think that might have been his property in Acton where they did shoot, and he actually loves dogs. Like the dogs in the films, I think were his. Yeah, and so like he's just a really really cool dude, and just a low key vibe. But
first shot of the movie, the first thing I'm thinking is like, how'd they get these dogs to behave so well?
Yeah, right. Like, he trained them nicely, and obviously a lot of hamburger meat.
I'm like, he's giving out meat the whole time. But like, I have a French bulldog, and he does not do anything I tell him to do. Yeah, Meatball.
Good old Meatball.
Does nothing I tell him to do.
Last but not least, we have Justin Michael Terry, who has been he was also a big proponent of the film and promoting it, being on Momi too. So shout out to Justin as well. He played, I think it's Joe's son is the relationship there. Yeah. Yeah. So really cool dynamic, really cool cast. As far as this film, and I don't want to give too much away, but what was your favorite scene in the film?
Yeah. So, I mean, jumping back to like, talking about the editing, when they are discussing how they're going to relay the information about the Bittertooth killer. There's a montage that happens of them discussing it and cutting to them actually talking about it. Yeah. And the way that was edited and like some of the shots, I know there's a specific shot that Monty had where it's a big close-up of the mask, but you see one of the characters in each of the eyes of the mask. I thought that was so unique and just I think he made some really cool, interesting things with those, as well as having the text messages popping up and all that. I thought it was just such an interesting sequence. I thought that was honestly my favorite sequence in the movie.
Yeah, for mine, and I'm just gonna say one simple word: chainsaw.
I mean, yeah, that makes sense.
Chainsaw.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm like over here, like going, yeah, I like the technical editing aspect, and you're like, I like the violence.
I like. Well, I didn't say violence. I just said chainsaw. That's all I said.
Well,
whatever. Spoiler free. As far as this film, and again, it's hard to talk about this film without giving away any spoilers. Who do you think is going to love this film? Like, what audience is this for?
I think it's for the type of people that listen to true crime podcasts. Yeah. I mean, like if you're into true crime, if you watch, like ID channel, if you can't wait to see that, new true crime doc, like that's who it's for. Yeah. Because I think it does fan service for that and that culture, but like turns it on its head.
For sure.
But I think that's the target audience.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, overall, it's a lighter horror film. Like obviously, there's some small aspects of horror in there.
Yeah. It's horror light, but I think it's a fun
entry
ride.
To horror.
It's a fun ride.
Just enough in there to like.
Yeah, exactly.
Scratch the itch.
Also, I mean, very similar. Stupid Games is not like it's a horror movie that you could watch with
very intro to horror.
Yeah.
Watch it with like a teenager. Or
whatever. It's not something that's like going to give people nightmares, but it's like it's spooky. Yes. Like it's and that's that's the kind of horror I loved when I was younger too. I mean, believe me, I watched like crazy stuff like Pinhead and all that stuff.
Right on your forum there.
And like really crazy Japanese horror movies like grotesque and all that stuff. But I also really loved you know, like Goosebumps and like stuff like that. And, you know, I think like, you know, the entry level horror stuff is always fun too.
Yeah. By the way, we do have a very nice selection of Asian horror films
Oh yeah. Hell
on
yeah.
Momi too. So you
Hell
definitely
yeah.
need to check that out.
Hell yeah.
I was surprised that I was not surprised that you chose BITTERTOOth because you know you were part of it.
Yeah.
But it would have been fun to see like kind of a deep genre film of like what you'd like to get into.
I mean, I kind of felt like I had to choose BITTERTOOth because I felt like it was my responsibility to plug something I was involved with, you know?
Yeah, and I actually was talking to Monty about obviously doing another
Yeah.
episode, and I just told him, I said, yeah, we're gonna have to do another film or Blood Covered Chocolate because we can't do BITTERTOOth. And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, someone already chose it, and James did. He's like, that's so awesome. James wants to promote the film. Thanks for. He actually said to say thank you.
Oh,
and,
for sure, dude. Thank you for making the film. Monty's a class act, man. He's a good dude, and I think he really did a great job here.
for sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's BITTERTOOth. If you want to go check that out, go download Momi 2. You can watch it for free. It's a phenomenal film. And as far as you, James, thank you for coming on the podcast and talking about your journey, talking about what you have coming up next, and obviously playing a fun game of this or that with us.
Yeah, yeah. I just scatterbrained the whole thing. Hopefully there's a podcast out of all my gobbledygook.
I'll tell you right now, if it wasn't for me without having notes here on my phone just to keep me in line, it's very difficult to stay here because I do ramble a lot. I do go onto tangents. Actually, it was very difficult keeping my phone on my leg because the pantsuit is a little.
Oh yeah, it's slidey.
It slides.
slidey,
Yeah,
yeah,
it
it's
wasn't.
slidey,
It wasn't
yeah.
sticking like my normal
Yeah,
khakis.
yeah. Wait till you learn that it's also slidey when things are in your pockets.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Don't keep anything valuable in the
Don't
pockets.
keep anything in the pocket. That's why I keep one thing in the pocket. It's just the phone. That way, if I don't feel anything, I'm like, oh, where's my phone?
There it is.
Yeah.
Love it, man. Well, dude, thanks for coming on the podcast. I hope people can check out your stuff. And thank you again for getting me in this tracksuit. Really
You know what? That was the key here. Like I did this just to get you on brand with the tracksuits.
Love it, man.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. And guys, check out Momi 2. A lot of great indie films on there.
Thanks for spending your time with us today on the More For Me and You podcast. If you've made it to the end, we appreciate you. Now, go do us a quick favor. Please like, comment, and share this episode. And before you go, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode with the incredible guests we have coming up. You can also follow us at Momi2 Podcast on Instagram and on TikTok. Oh, and for your next movie night, check out the Momi2 app. It's free and packed with amazing movies and shows you've probably never seen. Until next time, take care, stay safe, and we'll see you in the pod.